Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest of the Doing Business in the Construction Market in Saudi Arabia webinar series. And as usual, I'll be giving a rundown of a few key slides and data on the construction projects market in the kingdom, and giving you some insight into some of the key future projects and how to tap into the opportunities to take advantage of them, and how you can potentially grow your business and win work in the kingdom. This webinar is, of course, in association with DMG and the Big 5 Saudi event and exhibition taking place next March in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. And as ever, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is listed here, or to the Big 5 and DMG themselves. The contact details will be at the end of this slide deck. And now I'll take about 30 to 40 minutes to give this presentation, and then afterwards we'll take some questions from you and answer them if we can. So please, throughout this webinar, feel free to insert your questions into the chat box, and we'll get round to answering them at the end of the webinar if we can. And also, just to note that this webinar will be is being recorded and will be put onto YouTube and other links platforms, so you can look at it again in your own time. Okay, so without further ado, let's please move on to the next slide. Okay, so I thought we'd start off just by looking at some of the key projects in Saudi Arabia currently under tender, just to give you an idea and flavor of the different variations and types of project currently out in the market, and to whet your appetite of things to come. The largest project currently out to bid is the renewable energy round. It's focused on solar energy. Saudi Arabia is really moving into renewable energy projects very quickly and rapidly, and wants to become a leader in renewable energy, particularly in solar power. And this is the second round of the renewable energy program, worth about $6 billion. You can then see we've got the next terminal of the King Khalid International Airport expansion in Riyadh. Airport expansions are a major element of the project's plan in the kingdom, as the number of tourists increases and the economy grows and the existing infrastructure needs to be upgraded. We have a couple of projects which I'll come on to later on in this presentation: the King Salman Air Base relocation and the King Faisal Air Academy. But we also got here industrial projects, power plants, oil and gas projects, as you would expect, a new mall in Riyadh, the Avenues Riyadh Mall, water desalination projects, aircraft hangars, and so on. I won't go through each one, but just to give you a flavor of big and very varied types of projects in the kingdom today. Longer term, we've got some equally interesting and impressive projects coming up. We've got high-speed railway projects, we've got more renewable energy schemes, we've got metro projects in places like Jeddah and Dammam, we've got a nuclear energy program. We've got the Saudi Land Bridge, which is a new railway line between Riyadh and Jeddah. We've got petrochemical and oil and gas projects, as you would expect. We've got the causeway linking Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, which I've talked about before in previous webinars. We've got urban regeneration schemes like the new Jeddah downtown project, and so on. Various different types of projects across all sectors. And that's what is one of the most interesting things about Saudi Arabia, is that it offers opportunities across all sectors, whether it's oil and gas or power, water, or construction, which most of you here are interested in. And again, just a reminder, if you have any questions about anything you see in this webinar today, please add them into the question box, and we'll come round to answering them later in this presentation. Okay, so just in terms of the value of future projects in the kingdom and what sectors they're in. So currently in the kingdom, there are more than $1.2 trillion worth of known future planned and unawarded projects. Now, of that $1.2 trillion, $684 billion are in the construction sector, about 55%. Some $309 billion is in the transport sector, so roads, ports, railways, and so forth. Airports at 25% of that total. Power constitutes 10% of $1.2 trillion at $125 billion. Then we have oil, industrial, gas, water, and petrochemicals, each comprising more than $20 billion worth of projects in each of those sectors. I should add here that at this point, in case you're wondering, the data is sourced from MEED Projects, meedprojects.com. We are a projects tracking service covering all major projects in the Middle East region. And so by tracking these projects, we're able to quantify the total value of projects in each sector, as well as the individual projects themselves. So if you want to know more about that, you can email me or visit our website. And we've seen that there's $1.2 trillion of projects, future projects in Saudi Arabia, split across various different sectors. And in terms of the status of these projects, well, you can see here that we have currently some $22 billion worth of projects in bid evaluation. So that's where the tender has been issued and the bids have been submitted for the construction. And currently they've got some $22 billion worth of those, which can be awarded at any time. We then have 28 or nearly $29 billion worth of contracts where the tenders have been issued and we're waiting for the deadline for the bid to be submitted, and another $44 billion of projects which is at the pre-qualification stage, where we are in the process of selecting and inviting the companies to bid. We then have more than $1 trillion worth of contracts in the design or feed stage, where the consultants have been employed and selected, and work is underway on the design for these particular projects before they go out to bid. And then further ahead, we even have on study stage some $140 billion of projects, or 10% or 11% of the $1.2 trillion total in study stage. So you can see there is an enormous pipeline of projects in Saudi Arabia. And in fact, it is by far and away the largest projects market opportunity in the MENA region at more than $1.2 trillion. It's far ahead of the UAE, which in itself is enormous at $750 billion. And as you can see, it dwarfs the other GCC states, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and Qatar, which have about $150 billion to $200 billion each. So Saudi Arabia represents one of the world's largest project opportunities and is opening up fast and is accelerating its project plans. It's been in the news a lot recently for opening up its tourism visas, which we'll go on to later in this presentation, for trying to attract international investment and for opening up its economy and liberalizing both socially and economically to try and get more businesses involved in projects and work in general in the kingdom. So a very exciting opportunity. Now I want to take the opportunity now to go through some of the specific half dozen or so major projects coming up in the kingdom, just to give you an idea of some in more detail of some of the significant projects. Now this first one is called King Salman Park. This was a project launched earlier this year. It's an enormous project in the middle of Riyadh, and the government says it is going to be worth more than $17 billion. And indeed, it's linked with the next project, which we're going to go through in a minute, but it's going to take over an area of Riyadh, which is currently used for military purposes, and it's going to be transformed into one of the world's largest urban municipal parks. It's going to have, as you can see here, environmental, art, cultural facilities and complexes, public facilities. There's going to be residential, commercial, hospitality elements. It covers an enormous 13 square kilometers of land. And it's really going to transform Riyadh as a city and make it into one of the most attractive and livable cities in the region. It's going to be connected to 5 stations on the Riyadh Metro line to allow for good connectivity. And the client is the Riyadh Development Authority, which is the arm of the Riyadh government administration responsible for procuring and awarding major projects in the capital city of Saudi Arabia. It's currently in the design stage, so you have a group of international and regional architectural firms designing the various elements of the project and preparing the tender packages for it. And we expect the tenders for the individual packages to come out over the next 18 months or so. Obviously, this project offers a lot of opportunities for various different companies, whether it's in contracting or subcontracting, or supply of outdoor furniture and equipment, signage, environmental and agricultural products, as well as more mainstream cement, furniture, equipment and fittings for the various elements of the project. So this is going to be a very significant project in the years to come in Riyadh itself. Now, another quite different but equally significant project worth about $2.5 billion is actually where parts of the King Salman International Park are going to be located. And this involves the relocation and rebuild of the King Salman Air Base from Riyadh to Diyab, which is southwest of Riyadh city. So as you can see here, the runway and the military facilities will be dismantled to make way for other projects, including the park, and the whole airbase will be relocated outside of Riyadh. So you're going to have new runways, obviously, hangars, workshops, residential facilities for the military crew there, security fences, security equipment, all that kind of thing that military projects require. This project, which is being developed by the Ministry of Defence and Aviation, MODA, it is currently in bid. Bids are due to be submitted by local and international consortiums later this year, and we should expect an award early next year and work to start soon after. So this is a very significant project. There's another twinned project, which is the relocation of King Faisal Air Force Academy, and that is a similar size, $2.5 billion, with the Ministry of Defence as well, and that's also going to be relocated outside of Riyadh. So these are two very interesting military-type projects, which will offer lots of work for various different companies in the months and years to come. See some of your questions. Keep your questions coming in, and we'll come around to answering them later on. Okay, so another very interesting project, or should I say projects, is the Kingdom's very substantial housing plan. Now, the local population of Saudi Arabia is growing fast. You have more than 50% of the population under the age of 30, and this growing young population urgently requires housing, more housing units. There is a shortage of housing for Saudi nationals in the kingdom, and the government has introduced a unprecedented and significant program to build some 300,000 new units of villas and apartments in various areas of the kingdom. Now, as you can imagine, 300,000 units, even at $50,000 each, or $50,000 to $100,000 each in construction costs, and the associated infrastructure, is going to result in tens of billions of dollars of a new investment required, not just in the buildings themselves, but also in the interconnecting infrastructure, such as roads, sewerage networks, and electrical distribution and transmission systems, but also in the construction of nearby schools, hospitals, clinics, and so on. So this is really a very long-running, long-term, and very interesting project that's geographically diverse across the kingdom, which is going to offer a lot of opportunities, both in prefabrication for these projects, but also in and modular construction, but also in more conventional types of construction as well. So you can see here just where the demand is for housing, particularly in the center of the kingdom around Riyadh. You have some 325,000 units required, but also you can see in the Medina, Mecca regions, in Jizan in the far south, and also in the eastern province, where you need some 242,000 units. Already the Ministry of Housing, which is a client on this, is already building tens of thousands of units with various different companies across the kingdom, but there'll be many more contracts and opportunities in the years to come. So a very significant project requiring tens of billions of dollars of investment, and the kingdom is open to international companies to present their solutions and their investments to deliver this unprecedented project. So by all means, get in touch with the Ministry of Housing to learn more about these opportunities. And already we do have already have lots of international companies taking advantage of this opportunity. And let's see, next presentation, next slide. Move on to the next slide. Bear with us. Okay, now this is the project that is perhaps the most well-known or most publicized in Saudi Arabia. This is the NEOM project. Now, this is a gigantic $500 billion project, which might make it not only the biggest project in the world, but potentially the biggest project in history. And this was announced late last year by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And this is basically the construction and development of a totally new city in the far northwest of the kingdom, which is currently desert. It's totally unexploited. There's some beautiful touristic areas there, as well as some pristine beaches and land. And the idea is to make a really futuristic city there, using AI, using future industries and tech, and to create a new city of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of new inhabitants, but also to attract tourists and clean industries, to make a zero carbon city there. Now, this is in the Tabuk region of Saudi Arabia, undeveloped. There will be a new bridge across the Tiran Causeway linking Saudi Arabia by road with Egypt for the first time. This is the Sinai Peninsula here. This is Sharm el-Sheikh resort, which many of you might know, and Egypt and Cairo off to the left here of the map. But this is going to be a really long-term, 20 to 30-year project that really is going to result in billions of dollars of foreign investment, as well as government-funded infrastructure in this region. Already to date, the airport has been opened up to service logistically the project area, because it is remote. We already have contracts under tender for electrification and transmission distribution systems to reach the site, cement batching plants, as well as some initial infrastructure for roads and royal residences and other key essentials, labor camps and so forth. But there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of major tenders coming out from NEOM, which is a part of the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is funding the project. And it really is going to be a landmark project, not just for Saudi Arabia and the region, but the world as a whole. So work is already underway. We're only a fraction of the way into this project, and it's certainly something that will be of interest for everyone for years to come. A very exciting indeed project, and something which has got the full support of the government behind it. And just one, in fact, and the largest of a number of schemes along the Red Sea coast. Another project which is backed by the government and helped in part, funded in part by the Public Investment Fund, is Qiddiya. Again, you may well have heard of this project. This is an entertainment resort and location just outside Riyadh, about 45 minutes drive from the center of Riyadh, which is essentially creating a massive theme park for local nationals, Saudi nationals, as well as international tourists to come and visit. It incorporates various different zones. You've got outdoor parks and sports and wellness facilities, as well as the more traditional theme park elements such as roller coasters and rides, with Six Flags on board from the US, helping to develop this exciting tourism destination. It's in a beautiful area, an untouched area of Saudi Arabia, where between two canyons. It's going to be an all-year destination. It takes into account the heat of the summer to provide cooling and shading to ensure that it can be a year-long destination. Again, as I said, this is under the Qiddiya. This is under the Public Investment Fund, but the company set up for this is Qiddiya Investment Company. They've got their own website with more details of the project. I urge you to visit it. And tendering's already started for the various basic infrastructure packages on the project, and a number of international companies already signed up to invest in the scheme, which is worth about $4 billion and is going to be an interesting again project for in years to come. It's fast tracked, and the Saudi government is hoping it will be up and running and open from 2024, 2025 onwards. So another very exciting project. I urge you to visit the website. You can see, get a glimpse of some of the big ideas that are coming out of that. Another project also funded by the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, is the Red Sea Tourism Project, being developed by the Red Sea Development Company. It's off the coast, on the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia, based around Shureida Island. And again, this is going to be built on an untouched, pristine area of Saudi Arabia, beautiful diving and touristic area with lots of beautiful beaches, great climate all year round. And this is really, again, about trying to exploit Saudi Arabia's natural beauty and natural resources to create a tourism destination that will attract both local nationals, regional residents, and international visitors to the kingdom. So it's spread over 28,000 square kilometers on the Red Sea coast and over 90 different islands. And it will have some 12,000 residential units in addition to multiple hotels and tourist resorts, and will accommodate some 58,000 people once it's completed. Tenders are already being issued and under evaluation for the various different infrastructure packages. The temporary bridge linking Shureida Island with the mainland has already been awarded, as has the labour camp, wastewater treatment facilities, and other key infrastructure contracts required to start work on some of the main packages for this project. Again, like Qiddiya, the aim is for the first resorts to be up and running in the next few years in order to start attracting the first tourists. And overall, the estimated value or investment value for this project is some $9 billion. A lot of the investment will come from overseas hotel groups and companies looking to invest in the region. So another very exciting and very new type of project for Saudi Arabia, which of course is not historically been known for its leisure tourism. So again, this is just a way, another indication of how Saudi Arabia is changing and opening up to the world. One more project. This is more urban in nature. This is about rejuvenating some of the older parts of cities in Saudi Arabia, about building more modern infrastructure and utilizing the land to better effect. This is the Car Gateway project, which stands for King Abdulaziz Road project in the vicinity of the Grand Holy Mosque in Mecca. This is about rejuvenating the main thoroughfare, main road towards the mosque, and about building some high-rise infrastructure along it. If you're familiar with Mecca, you'll know that it has one of the world's tallest buildings there, the Abraj Al-Bayt complex. And this is about linking up with the Abraj Al-Bayt complex by building more five-star hotels and hotels in general, about building new malls and residences there. And this is being tendered by the Al Qura real estate company. Has a value of close to $1 billion, and tenders already out for some of the individual parcels on this project. This is just one of a number of urban rejuvenation schemes that are being carried out across the kingdom, particularly in areas of cities which are quite old and require investment, both in Mecca, Medina, but also in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam. And again, it's a very exciting opportunity that offers lots of opportunities for foreign investment, private sector investment, as well as traditional construction opportunities. So this is also a key project that will offer lots of opportunities in the years to come. So I've just given you a rundown of some of the key significant projects coming up. There's many, many more coming up. Just touching on some of the significant ones. If you wish to know more, please feel free to contact us. And of course, the event, Big Five Saudi event, an exhibition in Jeddah next March, near the Red Sea coast. You'll be able to get the opportunity to learn a lot more about these projects, meet the clients, other companies participating in them, and get to know a bit more about them. And just to prove, I guess, that these projects are serious and the kingdom and the government is taking these projects very seriously, they recently introduced a new tourist visa. I know from a lot of you and from my own personal experience that it's been tough to get visas in the past to get into Saudi Arabia. Now, since the end of September, they've introduced a new visa regime to allow it much easier to enter the kingdom. And Alexia here utilized the visa very recently, and she's going to talk about her experience about how she obtained the visa and how easy and quick it was to obtain. So Alexia, over to you.
Thank you. So about 2 weeks ago, Saudi introduced a brand new tourist visa that was applicable for quite a few different countries, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But basically, you now can have one visa that can be done online or on arrival. But this is now opening up, and it's multiple entry for $117. So it's allowing tourists to now spend up to 90 days in the country, but you can also enter the country on multiple occasions through the one visa. I personally went to Riyadh myself on Tuesday to try out the new tourist visa process. We flew into the Riyadh International Airport, and on arrival, we decided to try that rather than the e-visa. And it was very, very quick. I think I had my visa within 5 minutes. They were very, very accommodating. The customer service was actually brilliant. They guided us through every part of the process, and then we just did a payment on our debit card. We entered, I think we were through the airport within 10 minutes, actually, from the moment we kind of got off the plane straight through. It was incredibly fast, very, very efficient. And then on our way out, we again had the same very quick process where we just literally scanned our boarding pass, they'd stamped our passport again, and then we were out. So it's just really showing how, like Ed said, they're so serious about bringing tourism and these tourist projects to Saudi Arabia that they are really making it as simple as possible for you to kind of come in and out if you're a tourist. But it also means you can kind of come into the country and see all these new projects in the works as well. So just to touch on the visa requirements, there's only a few requirements, and it was actually very, very simple and straightforward. You just need to be over the age of 18. If you're not, you need to have a guardian. When you're applying, your passport needs to have at least 6 months validity at the time that you're entering Saudi Arabia. If they reject you on site, unfortunately, you cannot have them. You cannot have it refunded. But the overstay fees are 100 riyals a day, which is about 100 dirhams a day, which was just about £20 around then. So countries with bilateral agreements can also apply for the visas via e-visa through their consulate. So these are the USA, UK, South Korea, and Japan. So again, those are just the requirements that you need. How to apply? You've got 3 different options. So you've got through the e-visa portal, which is probably the fastest. You'll have your visa within what is normally about 5 to 30 minutes. You can do that through visa.visitsaudi.com. They'll guide you through every part of the process. You set it up. You set up your own account. I actually trialed that as well. Very, very straightforward. You can actually probably process the full forms and everything within 10 minutes. They actually have a little time counter on the top. Just to show you how fast it is. You can also go via your consulate. If you're not 100% on using the e-visa portal, or you want a little bit more information, going via your consulate also is an option. That processing takes probably about 1 to 2 days rather than how fast the e-visa is, but it's also very quick. And then on arrival from the dedicated kiosks, which is what we ended up trying. And again, that was a very efficient process that we tried. These are the eligible countries. So obviously you can see here, this is all the countries from Europe who are now eligible for this type of visa. So again, it's a good amount of countries. This is just Europe. And then for America, Asia, and Oceania, you have the following countries. So again, it's opened up quite massively in just the space of 2 weeks recently. And then this is obviously quite good for the construction industry, where Saudi is now pushing so much into tourism. A lot of construction is actually benefiting as a result. $27 billion worth of agreements with local and international investors has been done as a direct result of this tourism push, which will be developing mixed-use destinations across Saudi. I know Majid Al Futtaim will be developing shopping malls in the region as well. There'll be a snow park, and they're saying it's going to create about 12,000 jobs in Saudi Arabia across in addition to various hospitality schemes in Qiddiya and Neom. So we just wanted to also obviously highlight how easy now it is to actually enter Saudi as a tourist. Or even if you just want to go and see Saudi, see what the potential is, you can come in and you've got a multiple entry visa, and it's only $117 in total that you can use for the year. So it's made it that much bit easier to enter and go in and out.
And that's not just theoretical. Alexia has literally just done that this week. So you know, she's proved herself that it's possible. It's possible to arrive in Saudi Arabia and get one on arrival, which is a dramatic change for those of you who have had to struggle before to get visas for the kingdom. No more invitation letters required, no more expensive fees, no more trips to the consulate or visa processing center and waiting for the passport to come through and so forth, and having to renew every 3 months, whatever. It's a real game changer for the kingdom. And I've just for the avoidance of doubt, when we say tourism, okay, it can be also obviously for business purposes as well. So it's not when Saudi Arabia talks about tourism push, it's talking about people coming to Saudi Arabia for all sorts of reasons, visit reasons. So it could be for business meetings, exhibitions, conferences, as well as leisure tourism as well. Obviously, if you're going there to work and as a resident, then that's a different process. But clearly, if you're going there to visit, it's a game changer, because it just makes Saudi Arabia so much more accessible. And we're talking about an economy which is one of the largest in the world, one of the top 20 largest economies in the world, at nearly $1 trillion of GDP. Talking about a population of 30 million people. We're talking about fairly undeveloped infrastructure, whether it's tourism or leisure. You know, no hotels in the kingdom, so the kingdom is opening up in terms of. Sorry, there are no cinemas in the kingdom, and the government has opened up cinemas as something that people can go to and do. And so now there are hundreds of cinemas being built across the kingdom. There's a big religious tourism industry for Mecca and Medina, the Umrah and the Hajj, but for leisure tourism, that's very undeveloped. So there's going to be billions of dollars invested in new hotels and resorts to attract tourism into the kingdom. It's large areas of the kingdom are unexploited. It's beautiful ancient remains, great diving. You may have seen the tourism adverts on TV now. With there's a multi-million-dollar marketing push, and you can see that the kingdom is really trying to attract investment and people into the kingdom to visit it. So along with all these comes infrastructure developments, roads and airport expansions, railway networks to cope with the increased visitors, new malls and retail developments, as Alexia touched on, entertainment districts and so on. So in many cases, it's a virgin market for a lot of these things, and it represents an excellent opportunity. At the same time, we've got a fast-growing local population, as I said, very young, lots of housing requirements. But along with a growing population, you also require more schools, universities, hospitals, clinics, and all the associated infrastructure, social infrastructure, to accommodate the growth in population. So it's an excellent market potential. The government is obviously one of the world's largest oil and gas producers. It has the money. It's IPOing Saudi Aramco, as you probably all know. It has hundreds of billions of dollars in financial reserves. The PIF, the Public Investment Fund, is one of the world's largest sovereign funds. So it has the cash to spend, and it really is a very excellent opportunity. So if you're involved in construction anyway, a supply chain, or in terms of constructing itself, or consulting, engineering, design consulting, or labor, or whatever, then it is an excellent opportunity. And this is and to really get a one-stop shop to understand what's going on in the region, to meet various stakeholders, whether they're clients or contractors or agents and distributors in the kingdom, or even other suppliers, consultants. Then the Big Five event exhibition in Jeddah next March, you can see here 8th to 11th of March next year, is a really important event to be able to meet people and understand what's happening through the various presentations and conferences and stakeholders there. In the past, we've done this. We've had lots of questions around visas. And now, with a lot of those questions have been answered by this new visa regime, so it makes it even easier to pop in and out of the kingdom with less preparation. And whether you're an exhibitor or you want to exhibit, or whether you want to just visit or be a delegate to the event, there's a lot of opportunities there. So hope we can see you all there next year, next spring, and in Jeddah, the heart of where the big investment push is being made in the kingdom along the Red Sea coast, and hopefully I'll have a chance to meet you all there and take some questions and give more information. Now, we're happy now to take some questions from you all about anything that you may have seen today, or also just in general about business in Saudi Arabia or the projects market there. If we can answer them, we will. And just also to repeat that this presentation is being recorded and it will be sent to you, recorded version, and will be put up on YouTube as well, so you're free to distribute it to your friends and colleagues, whoever might be interested in this. And likewise, if you want to get in touch with either myself and know more about MEED Projects project tracking service, you can email me, edward.james@meed.com, or you can visit the MEED Projects website at meedprojects.com. We've got some 15,000 live projects worth more than $7 trillion being tracked in the MENA region. So if you want to know more about individual project opportunities, then please visit the MEED Projects website. Alternatively, if you want to know more about the Big 5 Saudi exhibition next March, then feel free to contact the Big 5 Saudi at DMG here. You got the inquiries, contact details. If you want to phone from in the Dubai office, you can call Shivani here, this number, or you can phone Saudi Arabia, Hassan, again with the details and emails there. And of course, you can visit the Big 5 Saudi website to learn a bit more about the exhibition, which, as you can see, is split into various different elements, such as MEP, HVAC, concrete, and so on. So let's, without further ado, let's look at some of the questions that we've got here. There's obviously a few questions about the presentation itself. As I said, it will be recorded and shared with you all later, and will be available online as well, both on the YouTube and the Big 5 Saudi website. In terms of when I'm talking about future, we have a question about what does future mean exactly when I'm talking about projects. Well, when I'm talking about it, I mean projects in the main contract award stage. So projects either under study, under design, or even in tender, but before the main construction contract is awarded. So when I said there were $1.2 trillion of projects planned and unawarded in the future in Saudi Arabia, I'm saying projects which have not yet been awarded to the main construction contractor. In terms of projects currently underway and under execution in the kingdom, there's well over $100 billion of projects currently under construction and contract in the kingdom. And the kingdom awards on average between $30 and $50 billion of contracts a year. Each year is slightly different, but this year we're on track for about $40 billion of contracts to be awarded. We're seeing growth this year, up from last year, and there's signs that the market is accelerating in terms of tender activity and contract awards. I've got a question here. What forums and opportunities are in place for built environment professional services? So I'm assuming things like engineering and design consultants and engineering firms. So the kingdom is keen to implement a policy called Saudiization and localization. So that is keen to ensure that as much value from what it spends is kept within the kingdom. And recently, the kingdom announced that it wanted all major consultancy work, where possible, to be awarded to companies in kingdom. So there are every major project requires extensive international and local consulting and engineering expertise, either in the design or the project management of the projects. And all the major big international engineering firms like Atkins, Bechtel, for example, Worley Parsons, Fluor, KBR, Dar Handasa, Khatib and Alami are active in the kingdom. And but for companies who aren't already active in the kingdom, really the best thing to do is to set up, incorporate in the kingdom, because the way the kingdom is moving, and rightly so, is that it wants to get as many local companies and locally based consultants to win work as possible, rather than just awarding it to firms based in London or New York or Tokyo or whatever. It wants to have more people engaged in the kingdom itself, where it can train and pass on expertise and experience, which is, I think, a reasonable request. So there are billions of dollars of opportunities in the consulting space, but the tide is changing in terms of requirements for companies to be more local and more present locally. Got a question here about, do you have a summary for the other airport relocation projects? So this is about the relocation of the King Faisal Air Force Academy project. And this is a $2 billion project, design and build, a bit like the King Salman relocation, airbase relocation. Already international, I think about half a dozen international and local consortiums have been pre-qualified for the project. You can go to the Ministry of Defence website for the list of those companies, as well as a complete scope of the project. This is being built about 200 kilometers outside of Riyadh, and is basically the design and build upwards of a totally new Air Force Academy, a very significant investment indeed for the kingdom, and offers a very good opportunity for both consultants to work with the contractors, of course, from the contracting and subcontracting space itself. There were Italian, French, British, American contractors all involved for that, being qualified, and the bids are going to go in soon for that. So we'll know the winner very shortly. Do you also give some information about the new Sabre system? We are doing business in our machinery right now. The client in Saudi Arabia, however, this new system is quite difficult. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that. I can't, I'm afraid, answer you right now, but if you were to email me, I'll be happy to look into it and try to answer that question at a later time. What are the good question? What are the visa processes for countries not listed in the slides? And it's true to say that the visa on arrival and e-visas are only at this moment open to certain nationalities, mainly in Europe, some in North America, and some in Asia, as well as nationals of the GCC, of course. If you don't have a passport from those countries, then the traditional method of applying for visa applies, and that basically involves obtaining an invitation letter from a company in Saudi Arabia, and then depending on the country you're in and your passport, applying through either the Saudi consulate or the visa processing center, where you will have to pay some fees and do some biometric tests just to submit your thumbprint and photo. And then have your visa granted by the local consulate. So that still applies, unfortunately, for those other countries. But history shows that this process tends to open up over time, and I would fully expect to see other countries be eligible for the visa on arrival in due course. So just fingers crossed on that. But the more traditional system will apply, and for other nationalities. And for that, the best bet is to visit the visa website for your particular country to understand how you can apply. Another question: we are a manufacturer of movable furniture such as chairs, armchairs, and sofas in Turkey. What advice would you like to give us? Well, I'd like to give you lots of advice. But in the time given to me, I would suggest that you engage a consultant to understand the size of the market in the kingdom, what the opportunities are. Clearly, with such major construction, there is a massive demand for furniture, sanitary ware, all sorts of equipment and furniture used in buildings, telecoms equipment, lighting, and etc. The list goes on. Generally speaking, Turkish companies have had a strong presence in the region, and they, along with other nationalities, investors such as products from China, for example, in India, I would suggest that you go to travel at Saudi Arabia and you meet with potential distributors and agents to understand how they can assist you in distribution channels and selling your products. You obviously need to be specified with the relevant consultants and various ministries and so forth. So a fair amount of work is required, but I think as a first step, you would need to go to the kingdom to explore it yourself and meet some distributors in that space and some local agents who can help market and sell your product locally, as well as have a good understanding of the market. And this really is, I think, where the Big Five actually comes in very useful, because in addition to exhibiting your products, you can also meet potential distributors and agents in one place, and they can see your product and feel your product physically, and they can also talk to you about potential tie-ups with you. It is very important for businesses to have a good local agent or distributor, because once you've got one on board, it can be difficult to change them, and a good distributor or good agent will know the opportunities and substantially help your ability to sell your products in Kingdom. Of course, in the long run, any company which can manufacture locally in the Kingdom will have an advantage, not just, of course, in distribution costs, but also in terms of meeting government requirements for localization, Saudiization, and for be looked upon more favorably. So I think in the long run, most companies should be looking at trying to set up and establish a manufacturing base in the Kingdom where pertinent. Do we have any other construction market reports for other GCC countries? Certainly do. Both MEED and DMG have reports. If you go to the DMG Big Five websites, not just for Saudi, but for the Big Five Global, which is taking place in Dubai in a couple of months' time, you can see some other webinars on other markets in the region. And likewise, you go into YouTube, you also see the other recordings that we've done on other markets. I will also be giving a webinar in a couple of weeks' time on the Dubai market in advance of the Big Five Dubai event, and also which will also look at the region as a whole. And if you want more in-depth and even more data-focused reports, then you please go onto the MEED website, where you'll get you'll be able to look at reports on a country basis as well as on a sector basis. So that website is meed.com. If you go to the report store there, you can see a lot of more data-focused project-focused reports there too. How easy is it to set up a company in Saudi Arabia? It's a good question. All the countries of the region have made big strides and efforts in the last decade or so to make it as easy as possible for companies to set up. And indeed, if you look at the World Bank rankings of ease of doing business, Saudi Arabia has really accelerated up the list to be in the top 20 easiest companies to set up a business and do business in. Theoretically, you would need to get licenses from the SAGIA, the Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority. You also need to be registered with the various ministries and chambers of commerce, and get a local partner. One of these theoretically, it sometimes tends to be easier than it is in practice. I won't say it's the easiest thing in the world. I mean, there are certain paperwork requirements to be met and certain incorporation requirements to be met, as well as capital requirements, but it is getting easier. And if you go to the SAGIA website, SAGIA website, or Ministry of Commerce websites in Saudi Arabia, there will be a very clearly laid out plan and process for how you can set up in the kingdom. Depending on your sector or type of business, you might need a local partner. In other areas now, it's opening up to allow 100% foreign ownership, and it's better to bring on board an advisor or consultant who can help you, who's got experience of setting up companies in the kingdom and helping them to set up. So that would be my recommendation in that respect. 77% of projects are in the design phase. When will they move to the next stage? How do you see 2020? Well, as I said, for 2019, we expect project awards to exceed $35 billion this year, up from about $25 billion last year. It's true to say in the last 3 or 4 years, the kingdom has been affected by the fall in oil prices. But now with the 2030 vision in place and the government really committed to opening up the economy and attracting investment, we are seeing acceleration in tendering activity and project awards. So next year, I fully expect to see the market to keep on growing from $35 billion to about $40 billion of contracts awarded in the kingdom next year. We saw from an earlier slide, we've got some $45 billion in PQ, pre-qualification stage. Most of those should reach tender stage and be awarded next year. So that just gives you an idea of how the market shifts from design to tender and pre-qualification and then tender. We're not going to see all of the $800 billion plus of projects in design and feed stage go to tender next year. Of course, that would be unrealistic, but we could see a good portion of that, 5 to 10%, hopefully go towards tender over the next 18 months or so. Are there any special permission to export concrete admixtures to Saudi? There have been in the past export bans on cement for local cement producers to export out of Saudi Arabia to keep up with demand. That's now been relaxed, and I don't have any particular insights at the moment on import restrictions of concrete admixtures or other cement products into the kingdom. But I think at the moment there is a slight oversupply of cement in the kingdom. I suggest you perhaps talk to a cement consultant or import consultant who might be able to advise on particular limitations or restrictions on specific products. But I'm afraid I can't answer that question in any more detail at this stage. Okay, is there an online platform where I can find interested parties, connect with them for business tie-ups or joint ventures? Again, this is something I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not aware of a matchmaking service in that respect. But what I would say is, again, this is without being too biased here, I think this is where an event like the Big Five Saudi really comes in to its own. One of the reasons people go there is not just to exhibit their product, but also to meet other stakeholders and potential parties of interest, particularly agents and distributors, not to show off your product, but also to potentially tie up with them and meet them. I would say something like the Big Five is certainly certainly something that can help you there. Right, question on scope and water and wastewater treatment projects. Again, it's an interesting question because actually water has been a major growth, the water sector has been a major growth area in the kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years. As you know, Saudi Arabia is a desert country, so most of its potable water comes from desalination on the coast, which requires investment in massive desalination plants, and then the construction of pipeline infrastructure to transport the water from the coast to the urban centres, some of which can be hundreds of kilometres inland. At the same time, there's been a big push in recent years to try and treat sewage effluent and wastewater and to reuse that water for agricultural purposes or industrial purposes. So there's been a big increase in investment for large-scale water desalination and treatment projects. Last year, I think we had more than $5 billion of contracts in the water space. The major client is the SWCC, the Saline Water Conversion Corporation, which is in charge of desalination. And then in terms of sewerage networks, and then the national water company, NWC, is responsible. At the same time, there's been a big push in recent years to privatize the power and water sectors, and most now big desalination plants and wastewater treatment plants are being done on an IPP or IWP, an IWP or an ISTP basis. And Saudi Arabia is leading the way in that respect and has recently tendered the first ever globally private pipeline tenders as well. So if you're an investor, you can invest in water production and water treatment as well as pipelines now, and this is attracting a huge amount of foreign investment. So it's a very interesting, a very big growth area given the growing population and increasing demand for water. Okay, now last couple of questions. Are there officially published phases and timelines for these projects? No, and actually one of the reasons that people are so interested in projects data in the kingdom and attend events like the Big Five Saudi or use services like MEED and the MEED Projects project tracking platform is that very few tenders are whether government or private are publicly tendered. There's very little information on who's bidding, often on the scope, and that's why it can be very difficult sometimes to get data and intelligence on what's happening on projects in the kingdom. Now the things are changing and there's becoming a little bit more transparency in projects, but if you want a public list of all these projects and timeframes for them and bidders and consultants and scopes, I'm afraid generally speaking these projects don't exist. There's the odd project here and there where there is information in the public domain by the client, but generally speaking, it's all very it can be quite secretive, and those in the know are the ones which can benefit the most. And that's why it's so important to utilize data products like MEED Projects or attend events like Big Five Saudi, because that's the only way sometimes that you can get intelligence and information on business opportunities in the kingdom. So I'm hoping that with the new procurement law that's come out recently, I'm hoping that there'll be more transparency on tenders and projects in general in the kingdom, but at the moment it can be difficult still. And last question for today, could you please give information about engineering and architectural design works? Could we say that project phase works about the finish? Again, the way the system works in the kingdom is that normally it's a phased approach to projects. So generally, the client, which will normally be a public sector body like a ministry, will tender the consulting element of the project, normally requiring a local consulting company to undertake the engineering design works. If the project is very big and complex, then the local company can team up with an international architect or consultancy firm, and then that would normally take 10 to 18 months, after which a tender will be issued to pre-qualified contractors for the work. Again, for bigger projects, you might see a project manager, a company being brought on board, or you might even, as a system that's being taking place at the moment, that's a trend that's tends to be growing, is to employ a program manager for various ministry projects to run those. So that's generally the way it works. Most projects are conventional. Design is undertaken first, and then there's a main contract issued for the main construction. And once that's awarded, the contractor will award the MEP works and so on, and other subcontracts. But we are seeing a small movement towards more design build types of work, like the King Salman Air Base relocation project. But generally speaking, it's award the consultancy and engineering works first, and architectural works first, and then several months later down the line, once the tender documents are prepared, to award the main construction contract with the architect or consultant supervising the construction works. Right, well, so thank you very much for those questions. I'm afraid we've run to an hour now, so we've run out of time today for this. We will be doing more presentations in due course. My next one with DMG will be in a couple of weeks' time on the Dubai market and the region as a whole. So keep your eyes peeled out for that and information on when that will be. And again, please visit the Big Five Saudi website to get more information about that exhibition coming up next year. Also, feel free, please, to visit meedprojectsandme.com, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. The presentation will be made available to you, will be recorded, and you will be able to access it in due course. And that just leaves me to say thank you very much for your attention and for your questions today. I hope you found that useful, and I hope to see you at the event next year. Thank you very much for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. As Ed mentioned, this will be provided to you shortly after the webinar, probably within the next few days. We'll send the video recording and the presentation with all the information directly to your emails. So it will also be uploaded to YouTube. But thank you very much, and we'll see you for the next edition.